much going to do the same thing with this flap that I've done with this one. And you guys are probably way ahead of me if y'all are working along with me. My husband came back Friday, so that was why I had to get off the air, get off the video abruptly. Because he's been out of town for a little bit. Alright, so I just want to make sure that it's pretty even there before I commit. Okay. So make sure that folds well. That looks pretty good. Okay, still have the pocket here and the flap here. You want the pocket on the outside because you want to be able to put your tag in there, and your tag is going to be longer. So, and that actually might be kind of cute, having the tag, you know, sticking out further than the edge here. And I have an idea what I'm going to put on my edge, which I kind of already leaked in my comments. I'm going to use washi tape, y'all. So I bought some Tim Holtz washi tape, and that's how I'm going to use it. So, all right, so we're going to go ahead and put all of these in here to the best of our ability. I'm sorry if I'm off camera. I find that when I put my camera up there that it's different each time, so the view is giving me a little bit of a challenge. And this is real tedious work because you want it to be perfect, right? So it doesn't have to be perfect, but you want it to be somewhat perfect. All right, so got that. And you know, you will want to burnish that down just to make sure that it's in there pretty well. So. Yeah, I've never, you know, I don't know. I would love to know your opinions. Please leave comments. Let me know what paper you use when you're doing scrapbooks. I mean, this is how we learn. We learn from each other. And I think it's great to share that information or to bring something up like that, because sometimes you don't always think about those things and you really need to. And maybe somebody might see a video like this and they might not want to ask the question, but really, I think it's a question that needs to be asked. So. I think I got that one on there, right? Okay. Alright, so all four are done, and they look pretty good. And all of our our photo mat pockets are on the outside, which is good. Alright, so the next step is we can add our base paper, our designer paper now, and then figure out how wide. Well, I can tell you this. This is going to take up a ½ inch off of your pocket, okay? Because it's going to be, you're going to pop this in there, and it's going to. So you really want to probably dry fit this, right? Make sure that it fits in there. And then make sure that your pocket's not too large, because when you cut your cover, your back cover, you want to leave enough room for your tag, or your tag's going to hang out and it's going to get all bent up, you know. And some people like to leave it hanging out. It's just really a preference thing. So, I have misplaced my ruler. I'm going to grab my ruler and I'll be right back. Okay. So, I mean, really, we already know the measurements, right? 9 by 5. So when you're making a tag, I would probably go, see, it's really a preference, right? How tight do you want it to be? I would probably go 8 3/4. Yeah. And so we can try it. We can try it. I'm thinking 8 3/4. And you could go a little bigger than that. You know, it just might be a little bit tighter to get into the pocket. So I'm going to go with today, I'm going to go with 8 3/4. Oh boy, this one's so different than my one at home. I have to figure out where 8 3/4 is. Okay. And I don't know if y'all can see me, but so I have my paper cutter. 8 3/4. So we know that this is 5. So, and I'm going to lose a 1/2 inch when I bind it. So I'm probably going to go with, you know, 5 is actually probably pretty comfortable for me. Now, you can do tabs, you can go longer than 5, but it's just going to hang out just enough, and I think I'm going to go with 5. I think that feels good to me. And you know, I make my photo mats different all the time. I don't really have a rule of thumb with photo mats. I just make them all different sizes. I try to use a scrap paper, you know, and you know, really, I just do whatever moves me at the time. So 5, and so that should technically hang out a 1/2 inch. So it should technically look like about that. All right. So you probably can't see that because it's all black. Maybe you can. Yeah. For me, that is fine. Another thing I'm going to do is my tabs are actually going to be butterflies. I'm going to punch them out with that Martha Stewart punch that I got. And so my butterfly wings are actually going to pop out just a little bit more. And you know, and just for the purpose of having an idea of how long your page is going to be, I'm going to go ahead and punch those out because you really want your book. And this is what I mean by do your front and back cover and your spine last, because sometimes you're gonna paint yourself into a corner if you're gonna try to create pages on the fly. You know, if you create that first, then you're kind of stuck with that. Or you do like me and you put it into a box and use it later, but you never get back to it. Okay. All right. So give me just a second, and I'm going to grab the Martha Stewart. And you know, my supplies here are limited, so I apologize for all the cuts in the video because I have to go into a different room. And I did punch out just a template butterfly because I'm actually going to use the pattern paper for the butterfly. But this is actually, it's a little smaller than I had initially remembered. However, I love it. So it's not like a huge tab, but that's okay because it's really going to be a design element. So, and you know, what I'll probably do, since it has the little antennas, I'll probably put some glossy accents on there. I don't know if you can see that perfectly, but I might put some glossy accents on there just to make it stronger so that the little antennas don't, so they don't break off. Okay, all right, so what we're looking at on a cover right now, we've got this hanging out about 1/2 inch. Yep, perfectly a 1/2 inch there. So we're looking at 6 inches. Okay, so I always like to, and this is just me, everybody's different, but so if you can see that, it is 6 inches. I'm not sure if you can see that. I think that lighting is just really difficult. I'm going to turn the light back out. Alright. Alright, so from the top of the butterfly, it's just about 6 inches. So I'm probably going to come out to 6.5. And for some people that may be too much. But for me, I like that extra, So I'm probably going to do 6.5 on the cover. And I'm going to make the length of it. I don't have any tags that are going to be coming out the top, so I'm going to make this, since I'm going 6.5 here. I mean, okay, so I'm going to probably do this at 9.5. Yeah, 6.5 by 9.5. I mean, I think that will make me happy. Yep. Okay. You know, honestly, it can be what you want, right? So I'm going to get my chipboard, and I'm going to come back. Now, regarding chipboard, a lot of people recycle chipboard, and that is perfectly fine. I do buy my chipboard from Joann's, always have, and I do buy it in quantity, so it comes in 25 sheets, and it's reasonable. It's about $10, I guess, and that is the brand that I use, or the number on it. That's really the only distinguishing marks on here. There's no, I don't know what the weight of this is, but it is a very heavy. It's heavy, it's nice, okay? So it doesn't bend easily. And it is considered, I say heavy, but it's considered a medium weight. So I don't know what that is compared to other brands. I just know that I've always used this, and this works well for me. So, and what we said in our previous video was 6.5 by 9.5, I believe, is what we came up with. So I just want to try to figure out the best way to cut it, so that I don't. I'm actually going to cut it at 9.5. And there's a reason why. Let me see here. Nope, 6.5. So once I cut it, yeah. Okay, we're going to cut it here, 6.5. I know, because I want to use my spine out of this part. I don't want to cut it where it's all. Now, y'all, this paper cutter is miserable for me. It is, like I said, the best cutter that I've found is one that you buy at Office Depot. This one is a little bit clunky to use. It's just not as a heavyweight one as the one I have at home. And if you use the rotary cutter, I don't know, I've never done that, so I'm not really sure how well that cuts. Okay. I am personally a fan of this type of cutter, but the one I have at home. Okay, so we have 6.5 by 9.5. And 9.5 is going to give us 1/4 of an inch on the top and the bottom, and that should be fine, I believe. It's a matter of preference. You might not like to see that much, or you might want more, you know. So you want to consider that. And you can cut your first page and kind of dry fit it and see how it looks to you. So I believe that that is 9.5. See, this little measured doodad thing here, I'm not a big fan of. I'm sorry if I sound like I'm just complaining, because I'm really not. It's just you get used to one thing that you use and then you switch it up. So it's a little different. Okay. So you gotta use a little bit of elbow grease there. So I already know that this is 9.5. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this to 9.5 because the spine is going to come out of this piece. I'm going to use the flat side. 9.5. Okay. All right. So this is how we determine how wide our spine is going to be. I'm going to have a 1/2 inch gusset in the front and a 1/2 inch gusset in the back. So my spine is going to be, let's see here, 1/2. So you're going to have 1/2. It's going to be 2.5 inches. Yeah, I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to do 2.5. And the way I came to that conclusion was I want a 1/2 inch in my gusset here, and I want a 1/2 inch in that gusset here. The one before the first seam, or whatever you want to call this, and a 1/2 inch after. I want that gusset to match the ones that I have here. Okay, so we're going to do 2 1/2. So we'll go ahead and cut this. And this should be really interesting, y'all, because we're just doing this on the fly. I do not have a written down pattern or anything, so. Alright, so I'm going to dry fit that. Okay, well that was interesting. I've never had my iPad do what it just did. I couldn't reclaim my space, so I had to power it off and power it back on, and I got my space back. It was weird, really weird. Anyway, that seemed to work. Okay, so this is actually a pretty skinny spine for me because I normally make big books, but we're going to simplify it. So this is what it's going to look like for me, okay? I don't know if you can see all of that, and see there's just a little bit. Yeah, that will be fine for me. You may prefer to have more on your edge, and so you can make it longer if you want. But we did 9 1/2, okay? And you see how it's going to accommodate the gusset before the first hinge and the last hinge, and then we're going to have this extra that's going to be on the pages themselves, and that's going to help to secure it to your book. Okay, all right, so we have the front or back cover, and we have the spine. And I just want to dry fit real quick to make sure that's actually the size that I want. It's a little wide. You might decide to go a little less because there's gonna be about that much extra on the front of the book. And my thinking there is that I always do my charm closure, and I'm actually, oh darn, you know, I forgot I don't have my hole punch here, but that's okay, we'll figure it out. I do my charm closure right here, and that will keep it from mashing my butterflies. It'll have plenty of room. It won't hang off. So for me, this is a good fit for me. You might decide that you want it smaller, and that's fine. It's real simple to do. You know, basically not a lot is going to change on the measurement side. You pick the measurement you want, and then we're going to cover the chipboard. Okay, so this chipboard is 6 1/2 by 9 1/2. So I'm going to cut another one. Alright, 6 1/2. Sorry for the noise, y'all. This thing has to work really hard to get this chipboard cut. Let me know if you like your rotary cutter on chipboard versus this thingamajig. Curious. I've never really used one. I've seen people use them in videos before, and it seems like they have to cut it several times. Whereas this is just one, you know, chop. Alright, so just want to make sure everything looks good, everything lines up. And you know, the funny thing is this is actually just a little bit longer. So this is just a little bit longer than 9 1/2. So I'm going to clean that up. If this thing will let me do that, because this is a skinny sliver and that's probably not going to be the easiest thing to do. So I might be cutting into a new piece of chipboard. Nope, that worked okay. Just louder than I'll get out. Alright, so. See, that's why it's important to measure twice. And that looks like it's just a little bit longer too. I feel like I just get random measurements on this thing. I'm sure it's me. Alright. Just clean that up. Sorry for the noise. I know that was probably super loud for y'all. Okay. Alright, so we'll put this over here. Alright. So this is going to be as far as length, it's going to be perfect because you're going to have about an inch on the top and on the bottom, and that's what you need is an inch all the way around. So what we want to do is we're going to have to put, but it's not long enough, so we need to put 2 of these sheets of paper together. You do want to use some of the stronger tape because I have seen where the tape is not that strong and it kind of buckles or curls. It doesn't lay right, you know, again in certain conditions like humidity and that kind of thing. So use some good tape there. Alright. And I'm just going to make it about this wide. I think the rule of thumb is an inch gap or overlay, just, you know, an inch. Mine's a little less than an inch, but since my spine is so skinny, I'm not going to do an inch. I'm going to do what I got here, and this is just right around 3/4 of an inch. So, all right, we're going to put these papers together. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I already did this part of the video once, but I had a really bad thing happen, and that's good because this is why you need to see it. You need this in the middle of your spine. Okay, that needs to be in the middle of your spine. But when you have the overlay, you actually want to make sure that this seam here and this seam here is in the middle, is exactly in the middle. So I have 3/4 of an inch of an overlay, so I want to move it where it's just a little bit. This seam is going to be right here, whereas the other seam on the other side is going to be right here. If you don't do that, then it's possible that your seam will fall in the wrong place. I'm going to show you because I don't normally have this happen, but you know what? When you're recording, many things happen. I don't know if you can see the seam fell right there on the part that you need durability the most. You need to be able to open and close this without worrying about it falling apart. See where that seam fell? It's because I verified that one of the ends was in the middle, but I didn't realize that since I had given it an inch, that it actually hung off. I couldn't tell it was in the back. So you just want to take that into consideration when you lay your chipboard down. Just make sure that that seam is going to fall on your spine. Okay? So that happens. And you know, I don't normally use this tape for laying down my chipboard. I normally use my ATG. I did try this in my previous video, and Xyron's not working so well on chipboard, but we'll go ahead and use it again because it will be fine just to place your chipboard. The chipboard's not going to move on you once you get it all put together. So I'm not recommending this for chipboard. Alright, so I'm just going to turn this around, make it in the middle where I have an inch on top, inch on bottom, and I'm going to make sure that that seam is in the middle. Alright? So I'm just going to double check there. That looks good. That should be fine. Alright. So that's why I did 3/4 of an overlap. In most scenarios, people recommend to do an inch. So if you have a wider spine, the inch would be fine. But being that this spine is only 2.5, I went with the 3/4 of an inch. All right. Okay, so rule of thumb here is to take 2 pieces of chipboard, the same chipboard that you're working with, to determine how far your cover should be from your spine. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take this. And anytime I'm taping down paper or chipboard, I always do the edges, all of the edges first, just so that my edges are glued well. All right, and then just kind of look at both the top and the bottom and make sure that lines up, and put it down. Okay, so that's a nice, I guess you would call that a gusset too of some sort, but that's a nice amount there for your book. It will bend easy. If you put the chipboards too close together, when you try to bend it, it will fight it. It will probably crack your paper. It might even tear it, actually. So you don't want it too tight. You want a little give there, and that will give it just enough give. I forget whose channel I learned that on. It could be my sister Scrapper or SuperHappyScrapper. I don't recall. But that was a good little tip about using 2 pieces of chipboard. And after you've done it for a while, you can pretty much eyeball it, but you know, I like my guide. There, so that is perfect. And then what I do is I trim off the excess. Just need 1 inch on both sides. Okay. Now, this was always a hard part for me when I first started, was mitering my edges. And there's a tool that you can buy that works really well, but I've just never done that. I've never bought the tool. So what I do, there's no real science for me on this. I just try to get the diagonal as straight as I can, and I just cut it where there's a little bit left. Just a little bit, you know, left. I don't trim the paper all the way to the corner. You want to leave a little bit of an overhang. And do that to all your corners. You might find when you miter sometimes that it just didn't allow enough, and some of your chipboard might, you know, peek through. When I cover the inside of my book, I am really tight with my paper, so I only allow like 1/8. So like this is 5 by 9. My paper that I cut is probably going to be around 4 7/8 by, and maybe a little bit, you know, smaller, but by, you know, 8 7/8, something like that. So, and I always drop it when I'm done just to make sure it fits okay before I adhere it, before I commit to it. All right, let's see. That one's probably a little close for my comfort. I got a little happy on that one. Anyway, so that's what that looks like. And then a really cool trick that I figured out, I don't think I've ever seen anybody do this, but I've seen people work the paper up, but what I do is I fold it, and I use the table and the chipboard to crease those sides. So I just do that. Crease it, flip it over, just use the table and the chipboard. Crease it. That seems to work really well for me. I always do that. Do the same thing here. Just use the paper and the table. Alright. There we go. Now we're ready to put our good tape along the edges. And normally with the ATG tape, when I use it to place my chipboard on my paper stock, on my cardstock, I'm pretty happy with the way it adheres. So I usually just put one strip here and then one strip at the top. But since that Xyron is a little bit weird, I'm going to put one here going along the edge of the chipboard all the way around. And then I'm going to put two on the cardstock, 2 strips. And if you have wider tape, that's great too. You might just need one strip. Alright. Put that on the paper there. See, I've already gone through 3 rolls, but I did make that error on the first book, so I would say if you're using this brand, which is 6 yards, then you're going to need at least 4 for one book to be safe. So you don't run out right in the middle. Of course, if you can get score tape or scrappy tape, there's a lot of yardage on those, and those work really well. The only reason I don't have that is because usually you have to order that online, and I'm not the most patient person. When I usually need tape, I need it right away. So, and I think I actually have some score tape at home. Or at the other place, I should say. This is home. Alright. So I'm going to need a little bit more tape. So I'll be right back. I'm actually going to use this craft. And you don't need to put tape on the corners. Just about done. Sorry if this bores you to tears. So, alright. And if you think if it's better for me to do a lot of this off screen, if I ever do this again, let me know. That's good feedback. Alright, so I'm just going to burnish it, get all the air bubbles out. Make sure that it is adhering perfectly. Alright. Go ahead, start with the top. Always do the top and the bottom first. Hopefully we minded our edges good. We won't know until we get it down, until we get it folded. Alright. So I'm just going to do the same thing. Let the table do the work on the chipboard. Push that down pretty good. Flip it back over. And burnish. side. Flip it over to the next side. And you know, I've done a lot of these books, and I really recommend to do, you know, maybe use some paper that you're not going to be heartbroken about. You know, I probably wouldn't use Graphic 45 on my first book. It took me probably 2 or 3 books to really get the process down, to really do it decently. So you really should have some practice books before you really invest in your materials, you know, such as paper. That's okay. All right, so we're going to do this side now. And where we miter the edges, where we help the edges, I'm going to show you, we're going to do a little something here. It's got static on it. It's hanging to me, hanging on me. Okay, so you see this right here? You're going to push this in. See how I just pushed that in? Nothing fancy. Just push it in. Okay, and then we're going to do the folding to the end. And then we'll see if we have a good miter. After we get this done, I'm going to have to take a break and upload some of those videos, and my iPad's a little bit low on juice. I don't know if you saw that, but I just accidentally ripped my paper there, but that's okay. All right, so we're going to push in that corner. Just push it in. Push in that corner. All right. Fold. And bigger. Well, it's not 100% perfect, but it is pretty decent. I've seen better and I've seen worse. You see, this is what I mean. You might have just a little bit of chipboard showing. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to ink that up. You're not ever going to know that. And like I said, when I cover my back page, I cover everything in black, and then I cover it with the designer paper again. So I am real tight on this edge all the way around this, and so you're not going to see it. So it's not a big deal. Just make sure that you burnish. All right, and then. This is a very high stress point, so you just want to take your tool and very lightly, not hard at all, just kind of start making an indentation, but don't do it too hard, because if you do it too hard, your paper will rip. It can crack. So just push down gently and gradually pull your cover up. Along the way there. And flip it over and do the same thing. Gently. If you push down too hard, it will rip. Okay. Gently. There. Now that is a perfect cover. Your seam looks good. And if you are worried about this, you know, if you're worried about it coming undone or bubbling, because humidity does weird things. I know I keep saying that, but I've learned a lot of things about humidity, especially in Florida. You could Mod Podge this. I generally don't. Sometimes I do, it just depends. But primarily I don't. But, you know, that's up to you. You can certainly do it. And it'll be beautiful when you're done, so it'll be your own thing. Alright, so that is that. And then when we put our binding in there. It's gonna lay right there in the middle. So, and we're not gonna start that right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and end the video here, and it'll probably be tomorrow before I work on the rest of it. Greg will be out of town tomorrow, so I'll have lots of time to play with this and talk to y'all. Y'all have a great night. Talk to you later. Bye.